President Yoweri Museveni has set 5 targets for the new cabinet. The targets include fighting corruption, service delivery, East African integration, patriotism. President Museveni also wants the new cabinet to be a government of cohesion. He revealed the targets to the new cabinet as they were sworn in at Kololo ceremonial grounds in Kampala. Let's take a look.
I, swear in the name of the Almighty God.
The swearing-in ceremony that kicked off at about midday started with the Vice President, retired Major Jessica Alupo, who replaced Edward Chiwanuka II, the first to take oath.
Serve, protect, and defend the Constitution and observe the laws of Uganda, and that I shall promote the welfare of the people of Uganda. So help me God.
Prime Minister designate Robin Nabanja, who replaced Dr. Rukahana Rugunda, followed.
And shall uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and observe the laws of Uganda, and that I shall promote the welfare of people of Uganda. So help me God.
Second Deputy Prime Minister General Moses Ali followed suit in chronological order to take oath.
That I shall faithfully exercise the functions of the Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda, and shall uphold, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and observe the laws of Uganda, and that I shall promote the welfare of the people of Uganda.
I, Janet Kataha Museveni, swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Uganda, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. So help me God. I, Janet Kataha Museveni, being appointed a Minister of Uganda, swear in the name of the Almighty God that I will at all times wear and truly serve the Republic of Uganda in the office of a minister, and that I will support and uphold the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda as by law established, and that I will, to the best of my judgment, at all times when required, freely give my counsel and advice to the President of Uganda and his successors in office as by law established, for the good management of the public affairs of the Republic of Uganda, and that I will not directly or indirectly reveal any matter as shall come to my knowledge in the discharge of my duties and committed to my secrecy. So help me God.
The first Prime Minister, who is the former Speaker of Parliament Rebecca Kadaga, Investments Minister Evelyn Anite, and Minister for Presidency Babalanda were among 18 ministers who missed out on the swearing-in ceremony. In his address to the new cabinet, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni tasked the new cabinet on 5 key targets that includes fighting corruption and integration of East Africa.
So please, if you want to be durable leaders don't accept any favor from anybody. Don't seek favor, don't accept any, even if they give it to you. And don't tolerate corruption under you. So the second mission of this cabinet is no corruption. No corruption. The third mission is integration. We are working on the unit of East Africa. That's why I put my young sister, Rebecca Kadaga, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for East Africa, assisted by Ikuya Magode. You know Ikuya Magode?
Others are questioned among the ministers are service delivery and patriotism.
We were supervising ourselves because of commitment. Nobody should be in the public if you don't have a public spirit. And if you are the supervisor, me, I cannot tolerate anybody under me. Once I detect that, out, you go. Because if I tolerate you, I am endangering the system. So patriotism, patriotism. Then number 5, this government must be a government of service delivery. Because there is economic development, but there is service delivery, education, health, the roads. I don't want to hear anymore all these outcries. The issue of justice, land.
He also urged the ministers to promote his campaign of doing farming for both eating and for money to push Uganda to middle-income country.
The biggest good news in the last budget, which was not so much highlighted because these civil servants who write those documents, their understanding is distorted, is the decline of the Abakora Echida Chonka, the ones teach me each keken, those who work only for the stomach. You remember, I have been shouting since 2013, I've been shouting about the 68% of the homesteads which were still in the non-money economy. According to Rugorovi's speech the other day, which was written by these wonderful civil servants, only 39% now of, of the homesteads, according to the recent household survey, are still in the non-money economy.
The swearing in of the new cabinet is an activation of Uganda's economy since the country has been without cabinet for about 2 months. Philip Aguta, UBC News in Kololo.
Now, the newly sworn-in members of Cabinet have pledged to actualize the gospel of the President against corruption. The ministers want strengthening of justice systems against the practice. This they echoed shortly after taking oath and listening to the President's expectations of them.
The docket where I have been is that's where even the genesis of corruption, I would say, it is. And then the Minister of Finance, as the President normally talks. But the issue of corruption has become a very big jigger. If it's a jigger, it's this jigger which has eaten up a leg. And removing it needs techniques and a good safety pin so that we pluck it out.
We have to ensure that we do pass legislation and budgets that will bring more people into the money economy. We have to put money into the productive sectors of the economy. The moment we do that and we remain cohesive and we don't allow corruption to come in the midst of all that we shall be doing, then we shall be able to achieve.
And when they get the corrupt and evidence is there, let them be brought to book. Even if it's me, because there has been a lot of corruption tendencies, but people are left at rampage, and then they don't even see the reason why they should stop corruption. What I have seen myself is that people have mastered the corruption the techniques. They know that they can take away and embezzle government funds or public funds without anybody noticing them. It's a big chain that I think we need to break.
We shall not disappoint him. We shall do everything possible to stamp out corruption. Therefore, the corrupt should stand warned that is a cabinet of zero tolerance to corruption, and whether it means strengthening legislations, we shall do it. Whether it means coming up with new policy directions, we shall do it. But most importantly, to strengthen the investigative arms of government and also the judicial system so that the corrupt are caught and are then punished accordingly. So that we can save all the money that we have as a country and use it for service delivery, because that's what Ugandans want, to have services improved and delivered to all of them in all the corners of the country. And we shall do exactly that.
Now, police has impounded hundreds of motorcycles and private vehicles in an operation that targeted those defying the COVID-19 standard operating procedures. As early as 6 a.m. this Monday, all roads leading to the CBD were heavily manned by security checkpoints and cut-off points. Our reporter Robert Onyango has more.
In fulfillment of the Friday 18th June 2021 COVID-19 scale-down guidelines issued by government, Uganda Traffic Police is intensifying its operations. A beep at major Kampala city ins and outs, heavily armed security checkpoints continued netting many. Border operators are among those who couldn't maneuver past these checkpoints.
Of course, we've been pleading with the public to follow SOPs, but we have reached a stage where these endless reminders must stop in exchange for stricter enforcement. Therefore, for emphasis, all our frontline officers have been given guidelines to follow at checkpoints and how to verify the barcodes on all stickers that have been issued by the Ministry of Works and Transport. So we are going to ensure that the ban on movements of public and private passenger transport like buses, taxis, borders, even private cars is enforced.
Back home marching orders were also given to many city dwellers.
Our security personnel are going to continuously demand explanations about why people are out in the streets despite the ban on some of these movements. Even people who don't fall in the essential category are finding their way on the streets, and they will eventually carry the virus along with them back into their homes and undermine the fight against COVID-19.
By closure of business, Kampala's central business district was a no-going zone to non-essential workers, as many were turned away at different security cut-offs. Robert Onyango, UBC News, Kampala.
Meanwhile, police in one of the operations to decongest the city suffered a setback of identification with fellow police officers and covered. Now, in the course of the operation, police crossed lines with their fellow police officer who was guarding a supermarket along Han Shopping Mall on allegations that he attempted to open fire on the operation commander, saying he was protecting businessmen inside the mall.
Uganda Police and other sister security agencies have engaged in running battles with city dwellers in a bid to decongest the city and contain the spread of COVID-19. Earlier in the morning, police placed different roadblocks to different city roads that enter and exit the city, and dozens were seen begging the police to access the city and get their merchandise out of the arcades.
They can access their shops, pick their goods, take them outside Kampala, sell them so that they can feed their families. But police has been beating them, harassing them.
Move! People should move away! Get out of your corner.
Those who did not abide by the police instructions to get out of the city faced it rough as police cracked the whip on them, pushing them out of the city. Small-scale business traders were also forced to vacate the city.
Move! People should move away! Get out of your corner. No, we are giving it. Go home. Can you go home? Go home. Go home.
However, drama ensued when police suffered a setback of identifying colleagues deployed in the covert operation. In the course of police operation, the field force unit comprising of men and women in police uniform crossed lines with their fellow police officer, who they claim was hiding people in the arcade and wanted to open fire on the field commander.
It's fighting with the police officers. He wanted to kill the police officers when they're telling him. For him he wanted to fight. For him he wanted to fight. We told him we want. No. How can you point a gun? How can you open fire on our mother? Yes, sir.
Why can you open fire on me? How can you?
No. You leave him. Why open fire on our boss? How can you open fire on our madam? We move with him. No, don't beat. Papa, we move. Move slowly. Move with our. I'm not illegal. Move. No. Why don't you? You want to shoot a police officer? Who are you?
Police managed to decongest Kikubo, one of the biggest and crowded general merchandise area in downtown Kampala, with traders from all parts of the country making daily visits to the place to purchase commodities. Joint security has today manned different lanes and streets in the city, to be specific, Kikubo and Namirembe Lane, which are normally busy by this time of the day, but traders were stopped from accessing their arcades and shops in a bid to combat COVID-19. Saddam Mubale, Kalisha Stephen, UBC News, Kampala.
Meanwhile, inter-security agencies have warned the public that they are ready to use lethal methods to those attacking law enforcers on different checkpoints. Speaking from the police headquarters in Nakuru at a joint press briefing, the UPDF spokesperson, Brigadier Flavia Piekwaso, says many officers have sustained injuries while on duty from lawbreakers.
On the 14th of June 2021, an officer shot a border rider in Kabarore district on the allegations of trying to knock him upon the refusal to stop at the checkpoint. Security is accusing the public of over-provoking its officers while enforcing the law. Based on that, intersecurity agencies have vowed to use lethal force in case the situation warrants.
The soldiers under such threats will have no option but to defend themselves. And this is very important, because we've had cases of why soldiers do this, why soldiers have to shoot. But where soldiers are conducting their patrols, they are doing their work, and people are pelting stones at them.
Border riders are pointed out as the main elements attacking officers during curfew time.
Cases of continued abuse by some individuals who deliberately clash with security, specifically attempting to ride through checkpoints or knock security personnel with prior meditation. This one we have seen circumstances of such defiance. The security people are left with no option but to apply the necessary force as far as practicable.
All territorial commanders have been given new instructions in line with enforcement of the presidential directives against the spread of COVID-19.
Of course, we've been pleading with the public to follow SOPs, but we have reached a stage where these endless reminders must stop in exchange for stricter enforcement. Therefore, for emphasis, all our frontline officers have been given guidelines to follow at checkpoints and how to verify the barcodes on all stickers that have been issued by the Ministry of Works and Transport.
Police have also noticed some political elements trying to mobilize business community to protest against anti-corona laws in different towns across the country.
Already we've gotten intelligence of members of the opposition inciting traders, especially in Kampala, to forcefully reopen their businesses against the lockdown directives, especially in Chikubo, the shopping malls in Chiseka, and so on and so forth, even in Machinji. These meetings are conducted in markets under the guise of sensitizing the public against the SOPs.
Security officials who misuse their powers during this period are warned as the alert monitoring unit operates clandestinely to get rid of the unprofessional security operatives.
It has been very clear from the Inspector General of Police the habit of using security jackets in cars on non-official business must stop. Our alert squads are ready to counter all forms of professional misconduct by members of the security agencies.
Since the presidential directives of 42 days on combating the spread of COVID-19, police have arrested over 850 persons, 600 motor vehicles, and 2,762 motorcycles over non-compliance. Abdul Nasil, Lubwama, UBC News.
Kampala Capital City Authority, KCCA, has issued out guidelines to be followed by the city traders amidst the 42 days of lockdown. Among them is not congesting the city to violate the standard operating procedures. The resident city commissioner, Hude Hussein, called upon traders to stay home for the safety of their lives.
Following the recent presidential guidelines on curbing down the spread of COVID-19, Kampala Capital City Authority has set up strict guidelines to be followed by all traders in the city. While addressing the media in Kampala today, the resident city commissioner said they will not tolerate any congestion in the city that will lead to the spread of the virus.
No congestion in Chikubo or any other place downtown shall be entertained anymore. Those on foot are equally violating the rules. People should remain in their homes.
Hussein cautioned traders of Chikubo and other business places of downtown Kampala to desist from forcing themselves into the city under the disguise of wanting to work.
I want to inform you that we know how some of you are coming into the city. Some of you are using trucks and even ambulances to come to town. Please, we are warning you to desist from doing this.
He says, as Kampala Capital City Authority, they are doing all possible means to engage the management and leadership of Chikubo to make sure traders access their shops and get the necessary things they could have left there before the lockdown.
We are engaging the leadership of Chikubo, and this evening we are going to meet to establish whether it is possible to allow them to go and do that. We have not yet decided because it has serious implications, but we are engaging and we are sure we we shall reach a compromise.
In the same way, KCCA has set up an emergency call center for all COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 emergency cases that can be reached anytime.
As of today, KCCA has 18 ambulances, and all evacuations of patients, whether by private or public ambulances, shall be coordinated by the Emergency Medical Service. The toll-free line is 0800 990 000.
Jane Ramjisha, UBC News.
Now, private health facilities have started complementing the efforts of government in providing considerable treatment for COVID-19 patients. The compliance follows a directive from Ministry of Health last week to private hospitals that were charging 5 million shillings per day to treat a COVID-19 patient to be considerate and not breach the professional ethics of saving life fast. The country is currently experiencing an increase in the number of COVID-19 patients with limited space in government facilities, especially for those who need special care.
The second wave of COVID-19 in Uganda has so far been described as worst among the East African member states, given the magnitude of infections and deaths reported on a daily basis. Due to the high rate of infection, majority of people have reached stages of requiring special attention like oxygen support, resulting in too limited admission facilities. Private healthy facilities are now trying to complement the efforts of government to provide treatment for COVID patients who need special care and treatment. The latest is Novik Hospital in Kampala in collaboration with Patida Sumaj, an Indian community non-government organization which has opened a COVID treatment center on Uganda Road.
Mild to moderate case, whereby you can see the current situation. We are having a big gap in the medical infrastructure and people are suffering without a treatment. There are very many cases which becomes worse and then they rush to the hospital whereby they face the challenge and they lose their life. So since last year we had put up this one in a quarantine center.
The Indian High Commissioner to Uganda, Ajay Kumar, appreciated the gesture of the Indian community in trying to complement government efforts of saving lives.
That Patidar Samaj and the Novik Hospital have joined their hand to open a treatment center. We have 23 beds here, so 23 patients will benefit from that, and you know in Uganda number of cases are going up and there are shortages, so this initiative is real very meaningful step.
Former State Minister for Housing and Urban Development Sam Egola appealed to the private sector in Uganda to support government during this difficult moment.
Management of this place, mainly the people of Novik Hospital, for allowing Patida to join them, and then they work together to help this important cause of coronavirus which has attacked us.
The message to Ugandans remains strict observance of standard operating procedures and embracing vaccination.
Okay.
Now, a section of NRM MPs have issued an ultimatum of 1 week for government to intervene in the alleged overcharged costs of treating COVID-19 patients by private hospitals in Uganda. The MPs want an immediate intervention in what they describe as a double charge as the country continues to fight the second wave of coronavirus. Our reporter Daniel Mugaya has the details.
As the country continues to battle the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic, several stakeholders are taking advantage of the free market economy to exploit the victims of the pandemic. Most patients have failed to access health services due to the fear of the alleged charges for medication. Last week, Health Minister Jane Ruth Acheng was furnished with information that proprietors of private hospitals who are charging COVID-19 patients between 3 to 5 million shillings for treatment, a gesture she said was inhuman in such state of emergency.
But I think one of the biggest questions we should be asking ourselves is that over the years, why have we not equipped our hospitals? Why have we not equipped our hospitals that is first forcing our civilians and our members to go and visit the private sectors?
Government should immediately interrogate overcharging of COVID-19 patients and regulate these prices in the private sector and offer standard reference prices for treatment of COVID-19 patients.
The MPs, including Dickson Kateshumbwa, the MP for Shima Municipality, and Lillian Abad, the woman MP for Kitgum Municipality, among others, are yet to petition the Prime Minister over the matter, hence giving an ultimatum of 1 week.
Government should not look on. We had the Health Minister mentioning that she's concerned and she was condemning the action, but that is not enough.
That somebody is kept in the hospital at the ICU unit and is being asked to pay over 10 million per day. What kind of medicine are we buying to treat such people? There are even cases that someone is kept in the hospital on ICU claiming that they are still alive when the person died long time ago.
Let us come to the table and discuss and see if it is the issue of medicine, if there is something available, there are subsidies. This is a time for us to come together and say we can do this together.
This also comes at a time when Kampala resident City Commissioner Hud Hussein issued a statement requesting the Uganda Medical Association to clarify on the matter and ask the public to report cases of extortion in exchange to medical services. Daniel Mugoya, UBC News.
The leader of opposition in Parliament, Matthias Mpuga, has proposed appropriation of funds to procure vaccines to cover the entire population and also called for increased allocations to cater for the allowances of frontline health workers, the procurement of ambulances and personal protective equipment for the health workers. Mpuga said the rate of the current vaccination will see the vaccination of the entire population achieved in 12 years, a move he said is untenable. Addressing a news conference at Parliament, Mpuga said the second lockdown is going to be a harsh one on citizens, calling for soft landing for the vulnerable.
That talk about ghost procurements, ghost receipts, funds diverted, funds spent on poor supplies. So we can conclude that that was a botched appropriation. Furthermore, most of the funds that were geared towards resuscitating the economy, rather than preparing the health sector, which is now outstretched by the pandemic. To the contrary, the unfunded gaps in the health sector remained glaring. And given the intensity of the pandemic, as envisaged in other countries in our same economic status, more effort would have been geared towards funding and purchasing of vaccines, ICUs, oxygen plants, ambulances, drugs, among others, including PPEs for health workers. The citizens are now facing the consequences of government failure to prioritize their health. The President is increasingly delegating government obligations to being a regulator and affronting the private sector as the service provider. You have heard at all press conferences, ministers, including the President, trying to put pressure on private sector players as though they have the duty and
with that, we take a quick break. When we return, more details. This is News Tonight.
day in history.
On 21st June 2020, 26 new COVID-19 cases were identified out of 3,252 samples tested. This brought the cumulative number of confirmed cases to 728. By then, 359 patients had recovered and were discharged, including 2 patients in the past 24 hours. The number of active cases were 367 and 2 deaths. The new cases were from Rusizi with 18 cases, Rusumo with 2 cases, and Kigali with 6 cases, including from community testing.
Wait, Abu, tunamaliliza. And what are you doing throwing papers all over the place?
I'm looking for an invoice for a sound system and cables that I received yesterday, but I can't find it.
You know there is a way of keeping all this in one place and available to you as and when you need it.
I really wish there was one, because the way these invoices grow legs and disappear.
I believe this is what you're looking for.
Now how did it get there?
Tabo! Do you know that with EFRIS, you can stay on track of all your business transactions and improve on your record keeping?
How so?
Katituliku computer with EFRIS. I just search using the fiscal document number and I retrieve the records I'm looking for. Bookkeeping becomes simple after that.
Kapo, awesome, yeah.
I began using URS Kakasa Solutions and now I'm in charge of my business. And you can as well.
Kakasa, be sure you are in charge of your business.
Uganda Revenue Authority. Developing Uganda together.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear a mask properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we learn, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Welcome back. You are still watching News Tonight. Lawyers have appealed to the Attorney General to see that they are also considered as essential workers and cleared to move to various courts as dictated by the High Court last year. Geoffrey Turiasima of Wemeri and Company Advocate says President Yoweri Museveni in his address on COVID-19 listed categories of essential workers, however, excluded the advocates. Let's take a look.
Let's be careful. We think we shall get solutions to this crisis.
While addressing the nation on 18th June 2021, President Yoweri Museveni listed category of essential workers, including medical practitioners, journalists, those working in utilities, but excluded advocates. Last week, Chief Justice Alfonso Winyidolo allowed few courts to operate. however with a limited number of judiciary staff, and to only handle urgent matters among other directives to help in curbing the spread of COVID-19 to judicial officials. Although courts are open, advocates have found it hard to move to various courts since they were not cleared among the essential workers by the president. Geoffrey Tuliamusime, lawyer from Wamede and Company Advocates, in a letter they addressed to the Office of the Chief Justice, Attorney General and High Court Civil Division Registrar, they want lawyers to be included among the essential workers.
I have managed to move from my place where I stand to Chiwatule to here. If I wasn't able, there are very many advocates who cannot move, who cannot work. Now, we need them to put into consideration the court order of May 2020.
Tuliamusime referred to the orders issued by the High Court Judge Emmanuel Elub last year, says following the lockdown, court ordered the Attorney General's chambers to see that lawyers are included among the essential workers, which was not worked upon since then.
Because the court order was very clear. Why? Because you cannot declare courts to be opened and the officers of court, who are the advocates, are closed. It cannot happen. Now, we serve them with this court order. We are expecting them to respond to us in order to make advocates essential service providers.
Tuliamusime adds that since lawyers are not included among the essential workers, this infringes on the rights of fair hearing to their clients and the right to an order of habeas corpus under Article 44 of the Constitution. In another development, the hearing of Yusuf Nyazi's habeas corpus case flops following the absence of the trial judge Emmanuel Baguma.
Unfortunately, we came to the civil division this morning and the entire court is closed. We waited for more than 2-3 hours, still the court is closed. It is approaching 1 p.m., the court is still closed.
Talking to the judiciary spokesperson Jamson Kalimani, he clarified the absence of Judge Emmanuel Baguma.
Today, most of the courts could not operate normally because the judiciary had to work out a way on how the staff will be accessing the workplaces after the scaling down and suspension of the public transport. So one of those cases that were affected was the case which was supposed to be handled by Honorable Justice Emmanuel Baguma on habeas corpus, because the staff cannot move because public transport was suspended.
Yusuf Nyanzi, who is answering charges of murdering AIG General Felix Kawes and Major Muhammad Chigundu, their bodyguards and drivers, was last week arrested on the alleged attempted murder of General Katumba Wamala. Nyanzi was arrested from Chanja Chisasi with his 6-year-old son, Abdurakim Nyanzi, who was later released. According to Yusuf Nyanzi's son, those who arrested his father were dressed in plain clothes in a drone vehicle. All the security operatives conducted a search at his home last week. However, since then, relatives don't know his whereabouts. Deborah Namamonde, UBC News.
The police in Shema district has arrested 5 teachers of Ngozi Preparatory Primary School for going ahead with teaching pupils contrary to the presidential directives on the lockdown and the Ministry of Health standard operating procedures. Let's take a look.
The judiciary released some new revised guidelines which will help the staff on how they will be accessing the workplaces. We expect to be receiving some work permits which will enable our staff, especially those who don't have official vehicles, how they will be moving to the workplaces and moving back. We hope that after receiving those permits, our staff will now, the scaled down staff to the 10% will be able to reach the workplaces and handle emergency cases which have to be handled during this time. So some of the things that are contained in the new guidelines is specifically on how to scale down to the 10% at all courts and how the staff will be moving from their homes to the workplace and back. Now, to reduce on people touching papers, which may result into the transmission of the virus, we are going to do most of the work online. Every court has been directed to avail.
During the presidential national address last week, President Museveni ordered all education institutions to close as one measure of containing the spread of COVID-19 and directed all learners to go home. Police made an operation in Shema district and found pupils being taught at Bugongi Preparatory Primary School, yet all school gates were found closed. 5 teachers and the matron were taken to Shema Central Police Station to answer charges as investigation to arrest the school directors are going on. One of the people we talked to confessed and explained that they have been studying from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. by teachers, although they were aware that the President closed all education institutions.
Social distance one person per desk and everyone has a mask except which has just go through today.
turi gukora mwana kurebuka ngo tuba turi nko mu kirasi buri mwana nashitama wenka tuchaka tujanguhisha nko mu kirasi abe najya tutandabashomesa kuba president akakora akakinga atukureka niza kubahereza nkayimana abe n'umushomera abahereza nkakatabo ngo umushomera ko umuchonka.
According to the DPC Shema, Nirajire Stephen, investigations into the matter are underway to arrest the directors of the school for operating against the guidelines to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
But we managed to penetrate the school. We found the people in the class of P3, P5 and P6. We've managed to arrest 5 teachers who are now in our custody. They are charged of neglect act likely to cause COVID-19. Investigations are going on, and so far we are tracing for the directors of the school.
By the press time, all the arrested teachers were still at Shema Police Station. Nakungo Irene, UBC News.
Member of Parliament for Mukono District Betty Namboze Bachireke has appealed to government to offer financial assistance to teachers during the 42 days of lockdown. According to Namboze, government needs to give 300,000 shillings to every teacher per month, irrespective of whether they are affiliated to private or government schools.
The education sector is among the sectors that were greatly affected by the first lockdown. Many of the teachers resorted to being vendors, while others border riders. President Museveni in the first promised to offer the teachers circle over R1 billion shillings as relief package to stabilize their standard of living. With the stabilization fund to their circle called Mwalimu, many haven't accessed the funds. What remains unclear is whether the funds were released or whether the circle suffers from maladministration to manage the fund. Amidst this confusion, the teachers have faced another round of lockdown before recovery. Most affected again will be those in private schools, unlike those in public schools who are paid by government. However, Betty Namboze, Member of Parliament for Mukono District, said this time round, government should at least consider paying 300,000 shillings to each teacher, irrespective of whether it's private as relief package.
The government buli musomesa emuwengayo ku musala oba wa private oba wa government. Kuranga musomesa bana bagwanga at the end of the day.
Namboze was officiating at the food distribution exercise to private teachers in Chiwanga village in Mukono district. The food has been donated by Hub and Harbor Food Banking Organization. The items include maize flour, salt, sugar, beans and cooking oil.
Elia abantu abalina emmere mabegeyo. Tubakubiriza muveeyo. Musobole okuyamba ku bannamu abeetaaga. Emumanyibireeyo. Eriyo lumonde, eriyo muwogo. Vaayo ogambe nti banange nina kutiya za muwogo zange 3-4 kampeeko oba abakadde oba abalema oba something like that. Wadde olina space ntono osobola okufuna ekyokulima ddala vegetables. Abantu embi gyaffe gyetaaga nnyo vegetables.
On a sad note, the Executive Director of the Private Sector Foundation, Uganda, Gideon Badagawa, is dead. His death was confirmed this morning by Dr. Eli Karuhanga, the PSFU board chair, in a brief statement. According to the statement, Batagawa's wife, Susan Birungi Batagawa, has also been battling for her life alongside her husband in the hospital, a week after losing her father to COVID-19. Batagawa has led the private sector foundation Uganda PSFU for the last 10 years. He previously worked with Uganda Manufacturers Association as executive director for 2 years. He was also a board member, National Environment Management Authority, NEMA, Uganda Energy Credit Capitalization Company Limited, and Uganda National Planning Authority.
In efforts to improve quality assurance and Uganda's competitiveness as a tourist destination, Uganda Tourism Board is set to undertake a nationwide grading and classification exercise of hotel and accommodation facilities. As a member of the East African community, Uganda subscribes to the East African Grading and Classification Criteria, a system denoted by stars ranging from 1 to 5. The grading and classification exercise will be crowned by the awarding of star ratings to facilities found compliant to the EAC minimum standards. This is therefore a call to all accommodation and facility owners and managers to register and get licensed by UTB as a requirement and get ready for participation. For more information, visit www.utb.go.ug or email qualityassurance@utb.go.ug for details. Uganda Tourism Board, promoting tourism together.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field couldn't be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Welcome back. You are still watching News Tonight. In business news, a group of youth in Namungona are excited about the lockdown, which has raised demand for bicycles. Our team interacted with some of them in this business, and here is what is transpiring.
It is 3 days into the 42 days lockdown announced by the president to curb the spread of COVID-19 that has inflated Uganda's statistics. The prohibition of public transport, private means and motorcycles is a blessing in disguise to bicycle operators. The roads are now flooded with bicycle means of transport, which was not highlighted in the restrictions of the head of state. Chiyimba Regan is a bicycle mechanic who operates along Hoima Road at Namungona. In just 3 days, majority of the bicycles have been sold off. Chiyimba is at work by 6 a.m. due to the demand of bicycles.
Era mbadde nze ntera kujja ssaawa 4 3 naye kati ku luno guno eno second wave eno jajja musajja nze nja mwebaza kubanga kati egaali kati ze ziriko.
Chiyimba is not alone. He works with other 7 colleagues. Each of them is busy rebranding the second-hand bicycles to be able to hit the road.
Buli omu anoonya kaakulya. Toyinza mugoba nti gwe tojja kukolera wano. Omuleka n'anoonya omutwalo oba 2 nadde ewaka alabirire famire. Obudde buno kati eggaali esookerwako mitwalo 35 okusuubula. Kitegeeza nze mba nnyina kutunda 4. 45.
Young Master is the manager of this workstation and finds a problem accessing spare parts for the second-hand bicycles in town because of the ban on the operation of arcades.
Ekituufu Museveni ate ebintu ebimu kedi abantu atekemu oba omuntu omu mu dduuka oba babiri fe abasuubuzi tusobole okuba nga tusobola okugyayo ku bintu.
Whereas one would despise this job of repairing bicycles, the testimony by the youth at this station is positive.
Nze nalinga nkanika piki nagenda okulaba ebya piki tebitambula, musajja omukolera n'akuwaayo akado naye nagamba katwalize wamu naye kati ebbanga lyenkoledde mu ggaali sente mulimu nfunyemu sente mu ggaali.
Accordingly, the most selling bikes here are the sport bikes that many term as changers. Ivan Kahwa and Sebira Andrew, UBC News.
And now in sports news, former world javelin champion Julius Yego from Kenya has promised to improve his performance at the Tokyo Olympic Games, which will officially begin at the end of July this year after having been delayed by the pandemic last year. The athlete spares no effort in the training field as he eyes another javelin podium finish at the upcoming Grand Sports event after having been out of training for a long time due to the pandemic. Yego is the only Kenyan athlete in the field events to qualify for the games in Tokyo, as he met the qualifying range within an 87.73 meters throw at the 2019 African Games in Rabat. His first and only throw of 88.24 meters before he got injured in Rio 2016 was enough to earn him a silver medal back then. The Tokyo Olympics will be held from July 23rd to August the 8th. Well, and that's it for tonight. Thank you for sticking with us throughout the hour. Elizabeth Nakakoni is our sign language interpreter. I am Rhoda Ngozi. Have yourselves a lovely night.
The journey of AGOA, one of the things that first happened was to train over 2,000 girls.
So there were many problems for investors at the time I joined Uganda Investment Authority. And our role was to identify them, go to government and say, you've got to change this.
In 1986, we had about 2,000 kilometers of what you would have called paved road, but in very sorry state.
I want to thank you.